is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Night Owls podcast. This is episode 4 of our daily coverage, and we're going to be bringing you FAU content every single day here at the Night Owls podcast. So make sure to like and subscribe and turn on that notification button to be notified every single day. We'll be coming to you guys with a new video, which makes us the #1 FAU site because we are bringing you daily coverage so you're always up to date with the FAU Owls. Today, I'm joined by Blake Quillon, who's been at fall camp doing excellent coverage for the Night Owls day in and day out. You were at yesterday's scrimmage, Blake, and I'm also joined down below by a new face, Nixon. He is new to the podcast, but he's going to be bringing a lot of coverage to the Night Owls. Blake, I want to start with you. You were at yesterday's scrimmage, and you were absolutely pumped up yesterday. We saw it in your recap video. What are your main takeaways from yesterday's scrimmage?
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty exciting to see some 11-on-11 action. Obviously, the first team offense was absolutely cooking. They did a great job, got a 3-play touchdown. The Veldkamp to Messer connection was involved, and we did mention that in the recap video. But honestly, FAU first team offense looked good. When the second team went out, the defense had a very, very nice run stop to force a field goal from the second team. Overall, I think both sides of the ball did show flashes of very, very good play. But, we'll see what happens against Maryland, getting the first team out against another team this season. I think the scrimmage is a good sign, though. I'm excited for the one coming up later this weekend that we might be able to see and really get some longer action between both of the first team and the second team and get some more views at both of them. But quite honestly, it's going to be super interesting to see how this FAU rest of these practices go after the media seeing this 11-on-11 action, because it really is a change from what we've been viewing.
Yeah, and we do have a scrimmage coming up on Saturday, as you mentioned, full 11-on-11, open to the media, open to the fans. So you guys watching can go over to Flagler Credit Union Stadium, watch the scrimmage. We're going to be bringing you full coverage on the Night Owls, just like we do every single day. As I mentioned, we have a new face joining us today in Nixon. Nixon, introduce yourself. Who are you? Why are you an FAU fan? And why are you excited to cover FAU for Night Owls?
Yeah, so I'm Nixon. I live right here in Boca Raton, FAU's hometown. I'm very excited to cover FAU's football team because of obviously how they're coming out this season stronger than ever, and we're prepared to see what they hold this season. Also, obviously with the new recruits that Coach Kitley brought in, it's going to be an amazing season. Just so excited to cover.
100%. It is going to be an amazing season. And not only did Coach Kitley bring in a lot of talent, he also retained a lot of talent. And one of those guys he retained was Bryce Langston, who we talked to yesterday. Blake, you talked to Bryce. You know a lot about the returning talent and specifically the D-line. Coach Kitley said that the interior defensive line is going to surprise a lot of people this year. Tell us about the defensive line this year. Technical difficulties. Looks like we lost Blake. So, Nixon, I'm going to go over to you. Same question.
I'm sorry. I was so lost when I saw Blake's frozen face over there. Can you just repeat that one more time, please?
Of course. So, defensive line, Bryce Langston, one of the guys returning on the D-line. Coach Kitley mentioned in yesterday's press conference how strong the interior defensive line is and how it's going to surprise a lot of people this year. Could you just talk about the interior defensive line and why Coach Kitley is so high on it?
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned Bryce Langston. He chose to stay at FAU when he did have other offers, which is something you love to see. And Coach Kitley did say that he does have NFL talent. And Coach Kitley also picks him to represent FAU at media days, which shows how much confidence Coach Kitley has in him. He's also very dominant and commands and has a lot of respect on that defensive interior, which is going to be really good this season. And then some other things, obviously, we have CJ Duggett. He's a Cincinnati transfer, And Coach Kitley mentions he's a very vocal leader who has a quick first step and a strong presence inside. And then also Coach Santana praised his leadership, which is going to be something that really helps out FAU this season.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned Bryce Langston and CJ to get the two leaders in that interior defensive line. Both of those guys are very vocal with the team, and they're looking to get after the quarterback, get some sacks. It looks like we have Blake back in here. So, Blake, I'm going to get you back here on the
Yeah,
podcast.
some
What
technical
happened there,
difficulties.
Blake?
I literally didn't hit a button. My computer popped up a screen, says there's something wrong, and my computer needed to get restarted. And yeah, I'm back now. Some technical difficulties, but we're back and ready to go. I heard you mentioning Bryce Langston. I was able to speak with him in the press availability yesterday, and he echoed a lot of the same sentiments you said about Coach Santana focusing on leadership, and also mentioned his teammate CJ DeGette as a really great player. That interior defensive line is honestly, I think, one of FAU's strongest position groups. And Bryce Langston mentioned how deep it is with Sledge and some of the other faces on that line. So that interior defensive line definitely is going to make a difference and should be fun to watch them work all season.
It should definitely be fun to watch them all season. When you look at FAU, they have a lot of talent on that D line. And you lose Evan Anderson 2 years ago, one of the best D linemen in FAU history, was drafted into the NFL draft. But I want to go and switch over to the offensive side of the ball. Blake, you mentioned the offense was firing on all cylinders yesterday, the Velcamp to Messer connection. What did you see from the offense, which are huge positive signs for FAU fans to note going into this season?
Well, I just saw a lot of versatility. One thing I noticed, they used Easton Messer in the air and on the ground, which was super cool to see. A gadget receiver like him get multiple touches in many different ways. Honestly, I wouldn't say the offense was firing on all cylinders for every single team. I think the second team offense looked a little weak to me. One thing I saw, one of the quarterbacks for FAU, number 17, he had some pretty explosive runs as a quarterback, which was super cool to watch. I think this FAU offense, it's going to be very interesting how they operate. And we talked to Coach Kitley yesterday. He can do a lot of different things with this offense. He mentioned his time at Texas Tech, he kind of had a focus on running the ball more. He had a 1,500-yard running back in both of his seasons there. And before that, he was more, airing it out. So I think Coach Kitley has so much ability to do a lot of different things in this offense. And I do think that they're still going to be able to – they're going to have to work some things out and really find their offensive identity because their room, everything on that offense is so deep, and Velcamp is so talented. So – and he also mentioned Velcamp's running ability himself. I think everyone on this FAU offense can do a little bit of everything, and they will need some time. That's why I'm excited for the scrimmage on Saturday to see how they look because they really do need some more reps as a team, or they are getting reps as a team, just not the media seeing it. But we want to see that connection flowing between everyone, and it's going to be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Jordan Magwood have some huge runs, and he's really a dual threat quarterback with his leg and with his arms. Maybe, if FAU's able to play him in some games, he can get outside the pocket, get to the perimeter, utilize his legs, maybe pick up some key yardage scrambling. But I really like how you mentioned that coach said that he hasn't even unleashed Caden Velcamp's legs. And when you look at a guy who's 6'6", who can throw it as accurately as Caden, and you haven't even unleashed his legs, that's danger, and that's dangerous for every single defense going against him. Now, speaking of Caden, Blake, what did you see from him yesterday, and how would you assess his performance? Coach said he had a pick in the red zone. However, he still had a lot of positive moments.
Caden is just a confident player. I mean, you can tell by the way he holds himself and the way we see him on the field in individual drills, that he really has a lot of confidence. And confidence is such a key trait in any player, but especially the quarterback. I think the team trusts Caden. I think he has assumed this role as a starting quarterback and as the leader of this FAU team very well. Caden Velcamp is honestly the heart and soul of this team, like every quarterback should be. Veltkamp has so much potential to even exceed what he did at Western Kentucky last year. And honestly, with his experience coming in, it's going to be – he does have expectations. I mean, we've been talking about Veltkamp this entire time. We obviously remember what he did at Western Kentucky. I asked him yesterday, what did those expectations mean to you and how have you been able to battle them? And he's really focused on staying in the present and honestly focusing on the next play and the next opportunity he gets, like we heard Kitley say. I think this FAU room is so cohesive, and Kitley is the glue that is kind of able to hold it together. So Veltkamp looks very strong in anything I've seen him do. We didn't get to see the red zone period, but I mean, everyone makes a mistake in fall camp. So I wouldn't be worried too much about Veltkamp.
Yeah, 100%, Blake. And I really like how you mentioned that Kitley is the glue. I think that's a wonderful analogy because this FAU team, there's 46 new guys on the team, and Kitley is the guy who's holding them all together, which is a huge positive. Now, obviously, QB1, we expect to be Caden Veltkamp. Coach even mentioned it will be Caden Veltkamp. But there is a competition for QB2. You never know. FAU 2 years ago, Casey Thompson got hurt in the third game of the season. He was out for the remainder of the year. Last year, Cam Fancher suffered 7 games out, I believe it was. So the last 2 years, FAU's starting quarterback has gone down, and that's where you have to turn to QB2. And there's really a 5-man battle for QB2, and we got to see the 2s and 3s play yesterday. Nixon, I want to go to you. Who do you think is going to be the QB2?
Yeah, so we obviously have a really good battle. My two mains that are battling is Zach Gibson and Casey Wiseman. Zach Gibson is a transfer from Georgia State who threw for over 1,000 yards last season. And when I break it down, I do think he is the more experienced of the two. But then we head over to Casey Wiseman, and he started for FAU in the Woodford game last season. And with that experience at FAU, he's young but familiar with the system, which is something that will definitely help him out in the battle. And it's really going to be a good battle. He's close to Gibson for the backup spot, and just excited to see who takes it away.
Blake, who do you think it's going to be, Zach Gibson or Casey Wiseman? Or do you think we could even see Jordan Magwood, Carson Kruger, or Mike Valentino possibly get that spot?
Coach said, five-man battle. I did mention Jordan Magwood. I think his ability on the ground could be so utilized as a backup quarterback. Obviously, it's a little unfortunate that we have a grad being a backup quarterback in the conversation here, which you don't love to see that for anyone because you want everyone to get the ability to play college football as a starting quarterback. I think Magwood, though, has a great opportunity here in fall camp coming in as a true freshman because he just has that athletic ability and raw talent. I think Jordan Magwood is someone that is very close to that number 2 and possibly almost can get that 3 spot. His athletic ability can push him over the edge, and I think he's someone to watch out for in the next 1 to 2 or 3 seasons as an FAU quarterback.
Yeah, Blake, 100%. I want to ask you another question to follow up here about the FAU team yesterday. Robbie Listell asked a great question in the press room, and he asked, who's going to be that red zone target? And Coach mentioned so many different names. Obviously, Easton's the guy we want to see, but he mentioned J.R. Wilson got a lot of targets in the red zone. Assad Wasim had 2 touchdowns yesterday. Also, the run game is huge. He mentioned Caden Shields had a 23-plus yard run. Jamari and Xavier were also good in the ground game. How do you think this FAU offense is going to operate in the red zone? And is it going to more so primarily focus on the run game or pass game?
Well, Kitley did say red zone is very situational. Depends what team you're going up against. So if it's a team that you can exploit in the air with a smaller secondary or slower secondary, I think the Owls are going to look to throw the ball. And mentioning Jared Wilson's huge. He has a lot of experience coming into his senior year, and having that 6'4" frame is honestly fantastic for a wide receiver of his caliber. Now, if you're facing a team that has a weaker defensive line, I think you run the ball. You got Caden, Jamari, and Xavier, who are all talented runners of the ball that can do different things. You can even look for them in the air if you want in the red zone. I think the red zone is just a delicate area of the field where you can do tons of different things based on what you've seen from the defense. And I'd ask Kelly a question about the film room. That'll definitely be a thing in their game prep. What can they exploit in the red zone?
100%. And I actually think they're going to be more of a pass first team in the red zone because of what we saw with Caden last year. 64% of red zone snaps at Western Kentucky were thrown balls through the air. So I think FAU is going to focus through the air. And obviously, as you mentioned, that could be to Xavier or Jamari or maybe even Caden, because he's mentioned he's working on that this year, this fall camp, on being able to catch out of the backfield and get yards after catch. But primarily, that's going to mean targeting receivers. And that's what I really want to focus on. And I'm going to ask this one to you, Nixon. The wide receiver room. Can you tell us, what your overall impressions of the wide receiver room are, and, some big things we saw yesterday from the receivers?
Yeah, so obviously Easton Messer is a big name in the FAU room right now. He came with Belcamp from Western Kentucky, so you'll obviously have that connection between the two, which is great to see that chemistry. But then we also have Jabari Smith. He's obviously a great deep ball threat. I'm so sorry. And he had over 200 yards and averaged 17.4 yards per catch last season, which is a great stat. And then also Assad Wasim. He was nominated for the 4M award watch list and was a finalist in high school. He transferred from Colorado, and he's having a great fall camp right now. He scored 2 touchdowns in the previous scrimmage, which is something you love to see, and is continuing to impress our FAU fans. And then another big name is J.R. Wilson. He's a transfer from Virginia. And right now, Coach Kitley has him lining up outside, which is adding another physical presence, which is great. And then one more thing that I want to mention about our red zone. This O-line unit is significantly improved from last season. There's more size, experience, and depth, which is going to add on to that red zone play, as you guys were mentioning before. But very excited to see how the season plays out.
Speaking of the offensive line, Nixon, who are some guys in the O line who you think are going to be huge for us, huge pass protectors, huge run blockers? Because football starts in the trenches and it starts up front.
Yeah, so right now we have 2 centers who are splitting the snaps. Those are Kashawn Sapp and Braden Cunningham. Sapp is a sophomore who is a 6'4" build with 325 pounds. And then obviously Cunningham, big guy, 6'6". He's from South Florida. And as I mentioned, they're both splitting snaps in fall camp right now. But both of them share that physical presence in the middle, which is going to be really interesting to see how Coach Kitley plays it out in the season. Are they going to continue splitting snaps? Is there going to be a number 1 center? It's going to be really interesting to see. And then also Daughtry Richardson. He is one of the most promising linemen for the FAU roster. He is very strong in pass protection, which can be something that is going to help FAU in that red zone. And Alex Atkovich said that Daughtry's development has been a major positive, which is going to be something interesting as the season plays out to see how far he can truly push himself and how great he can become.
Yeah, Alex Actovich, one of those big guys up front. He mentioned Dottie Richardson, alluding to what you said, piggybacking off what you said. Alex loves being at FAU. He wished he had 6 more years with the team, with the coaching staff, with the roster. So he loves this university. He's one of the most loyal guys you'll find in this day and age. It's not that easy to find guys like that, where there's other opportunities elsewhere for more money, for better football, for more opportunities on national television. And he really loves FAU. And Coach Kitley kind of alluded to this. It's a tight-knit group. There's no banter in the locker room. But I want to go over to the defensive side again. We alluded to the defensive one, but I want to talk about the secondary. And Blake, I'm going to ask you here about the secondary. There was a pick yesterday by Wendell Fillard, who's going to be huge. You talked to Dodo Derek Rogers, who is also very confident for this season, transfer from Purdue. He got some Big Ten reps. So overall, how do you think the secondary is going to fare this year?
I think the secondary is going to be one of the best in the American Conference. They're facing one of the best wide receiver groups, one of the best quarterbacks in the American Conference. And I think when you're going up against such great competition, especially in fall camp, it makes you better. And having a great offense to battle with an even almost great secondary is super great. And it's awesome to see that competition going ahead. Veltkamp mentioned in his presser that the secondary is very strong. It's one of the strengths of this FAU defense. And honestly, the secondary, I mean, you mentioned Wendell Fillard and Dodo. They're highlight players, and they're great DBs. I think overall the secondary is very deep. It's solid. They brought in 6 new transfers, which is, I mean, they've been able to adapt well. And if you're going up against one of the better wide receiver groups in all of the nation with Jabari Smith going to J.R. Wilson and Easton Messer, you're going to get better every day. So the secondary, I'm really excited to just watch them go up against another team because going against FAU wide receiver group every day is very challenging. I'm not going to lie. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do against Maryland and up against the better wide receivers in the American.
100% agree with you there. I'm really excited for the secondary as well. I think Wendell Fillard really showed that he was able to produce and get interceptions yesterday. He got that interception against Veltkamp, which is key. But I really want to highlight Easton Messer. And I asked Coach, about Easton Messer. Not only did he score that touchdown in the media viewing time, he got involved in the run game with a bunch of go around jet sweeps, which is huge for Messer overall and huge for the team because Coach Kelly wants to run some trick plays. And Blake, I want to ask you, how important is it to have not only Kitley wanting to have trick plays as a young, bright offensive mind, but also being able to involve a wide receiver in a bunch of jet sweeps with Messer's speed, a lot like how Tyreek Hill is utilized with and Jaden Waller are utilized with the Dolphins.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, Kitley did say in his press yesterday that he does have some more tricks up his sleeve, and we could definitely see a lot of players being utilized in interesting ways. Having a gadget receiver nowadays is almost a necessity in college football with how much speed there is on the field. And being from Boca Raton and FAU, that South Florida speed is different. They're practicing that South Florida heat in the hot, and you're going to be able to run. I think what is so important and crucial to FAU success this season is being very versatile because sometimes we get caught up in air raid. I think if the FAU offense is able to do a lot of the little things right, they're going to be able to expand on their offense so much. Obviously, we're going to be expecting FAU to pass the ball. That's going to be their A game. That's going to be what they love to do. I think when FAU runs the ball, they can also do that based on what we've heard from all the running backs. But if you can get in some special plays that, you can say, look, I need 7 yards on 4th down. What can I do besides throwing the ball if the defense isn't going to be ready for it? So I think having the option to do fun stuff on offense and really mix it up is going to be super important. And that is also why I mentioned Veltkamp's ability to run the ball. I mean, if you can run options and you can get out of the pocket, it opens up a world of possibilities for any offense. So FAU being able to do fun stuff and having receivers that are super versatile and fast, it's going to be interesting to see what they can come up with because the possibilities are honestly unlimited.
They definitely are. And Blake, I want to piggyback off a question I asked you earlier, which is who's going to be that red zone number 1 target? And you mentioned that it's situational because what if the team you're playing against has a really good defensive line? You're going to want to throw the ball more because that exploits their secondary. If they have a really good secondary and not as strong as a defensive line, you might want to run the ball. So I want to bring up 2 teams as a hypothetical. You have a team who has a really good defensive line, which means you're going to throw the ball more and a weaker secondary in that situation, and say it's a tie game in the 4th quarter, and then same situation, tie game in the 4th quarter. You have a team with a really good secondary and a not as strong defensive line. Who do you think that number 1 target's going to be in both those situations? And do you think Caden and Easton solidified themselves as RB1 and wide receiver 1 just based off yesterday? Because Caden had that 23-yard rush and a touchdown, and Coach really highlighted him, and Easton had a touchdown and a bunch of jet sweeps.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Xavier about the 23-yard rush and the touchdown.
Well,
Um,
that's Caden.
Ka- oh yes, Caden. I thought we were talking about Veldkamp for a second because there's two Cadens. That's on me. But also Xavier did break off a couple of big runs, and he mentioned Jamari broke off some big runs too. Um, Honestly, that's a very tough question. Let's start out with the throwing the ball because I think that's going to be a lot of what FAU is going to be trying to do this year. Veldkamp mentioned that all of his tight ends are very capable of catching the ball, and I think when you're looking to do something in the red zone, you do look to that tight end group for a big possession catch and a big body and creating mismatches. I mean, we mentioned secondary and D-line, obviously linebackers. How can you create a mismatch with the linebackers, having a running back go up against a linebacker, having a tight end go against a linebacker? That's so crucial in the red zone. I think – I mean, the issue with this question is that everyone is so talented on this FAU roster. Geez. I mean, it is just so situational in so many cases because I don't think any secondary is bad. I mean, there's like secondaries that have players you can exploit. I think if you have a smaller corner, you have J.R. Wilson on the outside that you can go to. But if the defense is in a zone concept, you want Easton Messer going underneath and really getting open. So I think it's honestly what does this defense do in the red zone? Are they more man-to-man? Are they sending pressure at the quarterback? Are they sitting back in zone? Which is what a lot of teams do when you get down in those areas because everyone can cover a space of the field. I think Easton Messer in zone coverage is going to be lethal because he's someone that is quick, he's shifty, and he's a great route runner. So in zone coverage, I think they're going to be looking to Easton Messer. When you got those one-on-one, man-on-man situations and throwing the ball, you're going to look to J.R. Wilson Jr. And if you have a matchup you can exploit, go to the tight end or running back.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge gap about passing. I'll try to keep the running short. If you got a weak interior D-line, give it to Caden, who's the power back, but he can do so much more than that. If you want to swing it out outside for a quick pass, I think the best one for that would be Xavier. If you want someone on a quick outside burst, you go to Jamari. I think those are their three main strengths, even though they can do everything. And it's what we've heard, that every one of those backs can do anything that they're asked to do. I think those three situations are probably the strongest, but from what I know now and what I've seen, that's what they're the best at individually. And then, gosh, there's so many. Easton Messer, put him on a jet sweep in the red zone and hopefully get some yards. You see it all the time. There's so many stuff that this FAU offense can do in the red zone. But I think what coverage do they like to do in the red zone? You can determine pass or run by that. You can determine which pass you want to do by that. And Kitley's such a great offensive mind and such a football junkie that he will know what to do in the red zone. I think FAU will be top 10 in red zone efficiency in the entire nation this year. They're going to get – if they get down there, they're going to score is what I'm saying right now. That's my hot take. You can clip this, post it on Twitter, send it out to the world. Top 10 red zone efficiency percentage.
Blake Quill on top 10 in red zone efficiency, and I can definitely see it. And Blake, something I really like that you mentioned is if you're passing, it's a position group we haven't talked about too much are the tight ends. You might want to run a 5-yard hitch route to Brock Cole or Billy Lyons or Temez Young. There's a lot of competition in the tight end room, which is something that you have to love when there's so much competition. Khalil Brantley, obviously retiring from football play. That is a huge loss, but it's next man up, just like how it is always. Nixon, I want to ask you this, and this was one of the questions that was asked at thenightowls.com in our feed of replies, and they said, what's really going to make this team better than last year? What position group has really improved this year than last year outside of quarterback and offensive line?
Yeah, so you mentioned the quarterback and offensive line did improve dramatically, but also something that we're seeing a huge improvement in is the defensive line. We have CJ Doggett, who's a Cincinnati transfer, which is going to really help on that defensive line. He's going to bring them together as he is a vocal leader. And then another thing that's really going to improve this year is the running back room. We have Caden Shields, Xavier Terrell, Jamari Sands. So all of this is going to come together this year and really help boost FAU.
1000% it is. I really like the defensive line take. You have CJ to get. You have Bryce Langston, both those leaders on the interior. I think we haven't mentioned Wilkie Denard yet. He's going to be on
We
the
haven't. My
outside.
goat, Wilkie Denard is my goat. He's an absolute dog. I think edge rusher is one of the positions that Coach Kelly mentioned that he wants to see more from them getting after the quarterback. I think Wilkie Denard could be a guy that could possibly lead that. You need some speed on the edge too, so obviously using some of those linebackers. You know what? Honestly, next time we go to fall camp, doing a deep dive into linebackers and tight ends because I feel like we've been talking a lot about the skills, a lot about outside, and a lot about inside. Those people in the middle of the field are so important. So definitely on Saturday, you're gonna get a nice little recap about every single linebacker out there, about those edge rushers, because that's what I'm looking to do. We got to get that versatile coverage, if you know what I mean.
100%. You got to cover every single area, and Blake's going to be bringing it to you first on Saturday. On the edge, you have guys like Wilkie Denard, Deshaun Batiste, Josh Roberts. Those guys are able to get after the quarterback at any point. I really like Deshaun Batiste, and Coach really mentioned him in his press conference yesterday, which is a huge thing to outlook and to mention and highlight a true freshman in Deshaun Batiste. So that's a huge positive. Deshaun Batiste, a high-end 3-star out of high school, coming to FAU. He brings a lot of speed off the edge. He has a great bounce off the edge and can really get after the quarterback. Guys, it was so fun talking about the FAU Owls after yesterday's scrimmage. But our coverage is coming every single day. Throw those owls up if you are at home. Throw those owls up in the comment section down below. For Blake Quillon, Nixon, I'm JJ Metz. Thank you guys so much for watching the Night Owls. See you guys tomorrow in the next one.
Number one!